Are you prepared with food for this year? Hello everybody, this is Deb from Just Do Something Homestead, and today we're not going to talk about preserving food. Instead, we are going to focus on growing your own food. We have lived on our homestead for 1.5 years, and it is so exciting to see it all come back to life after a long winter. I watched a video just yesterday that said 60% of Americans do not have more than 2 days worth of food. That is darn right scary in today's world. Talk about planting potatoes. We're also going to show you how to plant some broccoli and a few other things I have up my sleeve. Potatoes have saved nations whenever there's been drought and disease. Potatoes are very easy to grow, so if you are looking for a first-year crop, you've never grown anything, I recommend potatoes. We're out here putting the last of the woven weave fabric so we can start planting taters. We have 550 pounds of potatoes to plant in this area, but the first step is to put out the woven weave. Whew, we are almost done. We have been out here for several hours laying out the woven weave. This is our potato patch, and it is about 40 foot by 160. The very first step is to lay out the woven weave, and it has been a week of rain, so everything is really muddy. We're not going to be able to plant potatoes yet, but if we were able to get this all out today, I can plant potatoes after work. This is our 3rd or 4th year of using woven weave, and what you're seeing are all the holes that we have already burned into the fabric, these right here. And what I'm going to do is use an auger to drill into that hole. At that point, I put in some rabbit poop and I put in half of a seed potato. Our old garden ended right there, 40 by 60 feet, but we decided to extend it all the way down to the lower fence. That's going to increase the area of our potato garden 3 times bigger. But in that process, we needed to remove the fence that completely surrounded this. It was 6 feet tall. The deer never tried to get into our potato patch. In the next week or so, we're going to get a complete new fence all around this garden, add a gate at the end so we can easily get in, and then we will be planting potatoes every evening. We learned the hard way. We would lay out these rolls of woven weave, and as you can see, there is a seam right there, and it lays on top of the previous row. So we would start laying it out, and then we would start potatoes on this side. The reality is, if you start laying it out on this side, you need to start planting your potatoes on the other side. That way, when these potatoes get ripe first, all you have to do is lift up the fabric and remove the potatoes. If you go from the other direction, the fabric is stapled under the row beside it. Well, it's a beautiful day here in West Virginia, and we are going to go inside, have something to eat, and we're going to learn all about raising potatoes. If you don't have chickens, I highly recommend it. It is one of the best animals that you can raise no matter where you live. I'm also going to plant some broccoli tonight. I just feel like I'm behind in everything. But this is broccoli that I started, and it's organic, in organic soil. If you're not raising your own food, you really need to look into what our food is like in the United States. They are adding so many bad things. So I highly encourage you to plant a garden. This was all a hay field just 1 year ago. Take small steps, keep moving forward, and work hard. Now I already have the holes burned into my woven weave from last year. So the first thing I did was dig a hole with the shovel. Just removed a little bit of soil. Broccoli is a cool weather crop. That means it can take some frost and even some snow. I had broccoli out all winter and it produced this spring. It's pretty amazing. If you're a farmer, you know what this is. This is liquid gold. This is rabbit poop. I put a shovel full at the bottom of every hole that I dug. Rabbit poop is a cool weather fertilizer. That means that you can use it immediately. It does not have to compost for a year. Broccoli always seems to have this little curve there, so I'm going to plant it a little deep, but don't worry, it always has that growing up the stem. And there's my first one. So as you can see, I planted it so that the stem is facing upright, and the little curve is a little bit lower, but there's the first one. Say hi to everybody, Betsy. Tell them the real reason you're here is you are a beagle, and beagles love rabbit poop. I want to tell you, I've been a little stressed out lately. There is so much going on between eclipse and red heifers and stocking up and prices, and it's a hard time to live in America. But I'm hoping that I can give you a little encouragement. Just keep doing something every day. I am planting things now. I firmly believe that anybody can have a garden. Even when we lived in the suburbs, if you need raised beds or pots on the back porch, do something. And that's the name of our channel. Just do something. And I am a true country girl. I just found an earthworm, and my chickens are going to go crazy for it. We purposely put just a 6-foot fence between our chicken run and our garden for this very reason. All season, we are passing those chickens some of the produce that we raise. All right, ladies, I have a worm, and I know how this goes. Good luck. I think we have a winner. Oh, and by the way, our dog and our chickens get along just fine. Some other things we have growing in the garden now. This is kale from last year. Now, a week ago, I pulled off the top of this, and look, it has all new sprouts coming all around it. As far as broccoli, this is our last plant from the past summer, and we have been eating off of it a little bit every week, so free food. I love sugar snap peas, and they are just starting to come out of the soil. Last week, it rained solid for a week, and we're not talking a little bit of rain. We had an astronomical, more than I remember ever seeing. And of course, last year we were in a drought, so what a difference. But I want to tell you, I work full time, so it's really hard for me to just drop everything and plant all day long. So what I do is this right here. I come home in the evenings and I plant what I can. A lot of people think you have to be full in or full out, and that's not the truth. You can just do all you can when you can do it. All right, number 3. Isn't that sky behind me just gorgeous? I think in order to appreciate all the beauty, sometimes you have to have some rainy days. Some days when the wind's blowing 45 miles per hour and you're wondering, my goodness, is it ever going to be nice out again? But then you have a day like today and it puts it all into perspective. And you can see how much rain we've gotten because the soil is just clumped together like mud. So I'm actually not going to water these plants because there is plenty of moisture in the garden itself. I had a pastor once tell me that faith was planting a seed. And I wholeheartedly agree with that because I think when you plant something, you're saying, I know you're going to grow and I know you're going to be something. A lot of people say they don't have a green thumb. It doesn't take a green thumb. I think having a black thumb teaches you the mistakes that you've made in the past so that you can then grow just about anything. And so every year I try to add something new I've never grown before. I am always singing the praises of woven weave fabric, but a lot of people, when I tell them about it, they call it landscape fabric. And man, they have a lot of negative things to say. This is not landscape fabric. It's not fabric at all. It is woven to let the moisture in, but it does not let the weeds out. Now, if you're ever going to get weeds, I'll show you an example right here. That is a weed that is growing in one of the holes from last year. This had a pepper in it. And so this early weed is taking the opportunity of having some light. So that is the only way you ever get things growing up, through a hole. I start all my own seedlings, and I highly recommend that you buy them from a farmer. I sell my seedlings at the farmer's market, and no, they may not be as big as Walmart, but you know what? Walmart's plants are pot bound, and when you try to take them and plant them, they just don't do well. And you don't know what the seeds are, where they're coming from, or how they have been raised. So again, please support a farmer and buy from the farmer's market. For those of you that are new to my channel, first off, welcome so much for joining us. But I live in West Virginia, so this is Zone 6B. It is definitely time to start putting out your cold weather. If anything, I'm a little late on them. But you don't want to put out things like peppers or tomatoes yet. It's just too early for those. Sweet potatoes, far too early. This does not look like much, but is my first 8 broccoli plants are in the ground. And if you're wondering what these hoops are for, I cover this with a cloth to keep all the cabbage worms off of my cold crops, and that would be broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts. I'll tell you, woven weave saved our garden last year. We were in a major drought, and it kept everything from drying out. Something else I wanted to show you real quick. Look at my parsley. This is Italian parsley, and I do use mineral tubs. So this is grown in a mineral tub, and I keep all of my herbs in them so they don't become invasive. But wow, it's already growing better than everything else. This is peppermint, and perhaps mint is by far the most invasive of all the things you can grow. It will take over everything, but it's not going to do it because it's in a tub. Candy onions are still looking pretty sad, but looky here, we're getting brand new growth. All of this is just waiting for my tomatoes, and tomatoes cannot come out until I'd say May. They can't handle frost, but they are inside, just itty bitty ones starting to grow. Here's my bunnies. I just cleaned out their cages a few minutes ago. Got some of that poop. I needed it for the garden. But right here, that's my doe, and she's expecting babies, so that's pretty exciting. And talking babies, we have baby chicks coming on Friday. I love spring on the homestead. We just bought some new fruit trees, and look at this apple tree. It is completely full of buds. This is pretty exciting. My strawberry plants are coming back to life after a long winter. Look at this garlic. Last year, the drought was really harsh on our garlic, and we did not get a lot. So I invested in a lot of seed garlic, and I planted 5 varieties all over the property last October. These are elephant garlic. I've always wanted to plant them. And not only do I raise everything that I plant, I also sell the extra in my farm stand. So if you are a local subscriber, I have things planted and growing in my farm stand. And what do you think sells faster than everything else? My potted herbs. Those things go flying off my table. Okay, I planted broccoli, worked on the potato patch for hours and hours, and fed the animals, put everybody away for the night, and it's almost bedtime. Haven't had supper yet, but I wanted to talk a little bit about seed potatoes. These are Yukon Gold. Have you ever seen such huge Yukon Gold? Seed potatoes are specially grown so that you can plant them in early spring. And what you see here is some of that growth. Each of these is called an eye, and when you plant them, you want to make sure that every single area of that potato has at least one eye growing on it. So if I was to cut this one right now, I would cut it about halfway, because over on the left, you're going to see some eyes that are also going to sprout. You can find seed potatoes in a lot of your local big box stores, but let me tell you, you're paying way too much for them. I was able to get 50 pounds of seed potatoes for less than $30. That is correct. And so I have about 550 pounds of potatoes. To say that we grow a lot of potatoes is definitely an understatement. Now, looking at this one, this is another Yukon Gold. I would cut it right between those two, and I would plant half. I never cut them into small little cubes. I plant at least half of a potato, and if it's a small potato, I plant the entire potato. When I cut them, I do not let them heal for 2, 3, 4 days. A lot of people do. I literally take the knife with me to my potato patch, cut it in half, and stick it in the ground. The cut side goes down, and the part that's going to grow goes up. I purchased these seed potatoes from my local farm store. I've ordered them before online, and I have never been happy, but these are far less expensive, and I just think they're far better. In fact, let me show you a picture of a potato I grew last year from this seed potato. These are red Lesotas. This is one of my own seed potatoes. Yes, this teeny tiny little potato is already growing. It is very difficult to get your potatoes to stay good in your root cellar for an entire season. To go from fall until next summer, it's very difficult because they start to grow. So my solution is to can as many of those potatoes as they become ripe. And if you have never canned potatoes, you're probably trying to figure out what in the world are they canned in. They are canned in just plain water, but potatoes are extremely starchy, and so what happens is it gets thick around it. There is nothing wrong with these potatoes. In fact, canned potatoes are amazing. They are very, very good. I use them mostly for fried potatoes. But what I'm going to do is I just pop off this lid. This was from last August. I pop off the lid and I put it in a strainer and I rinse off all of that starch. Now, if you read canning books, it'll say rinse your potatoes 2-3 times and you'll get all the starch off. I soak and rinse my potatoes at least 3 times and I still have starch, but it is not harmful. So may look a little funky, but it's just fine. If anything today, I hope I encourage you to just try your first garden. If you have never done it, pick up some seedlings. If you don't have a place to put it in the ground, put them in some pots on your porch. But please start growing your food and being less dependent on the grocery stores. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Have a blessed day, everybody. Bye-bye.